Asterisk, sometimes life feels like a long road at night. Quiet, mysterious, filled with places we've passed 100 times, yet never really seen. And then someone comes along, someone whose presence lights up the whole map of your world. Someone who doesn't just exist in a city, she creates one. And today, I want to reveal her city, not the one drawn on a postcard or marked on a GPS, but the city she builds with her smile, her courage, her kindness. Every step she takes becomes a street, every dream she holds becomes a skyline, and every moment you choose to love her becomes a skyline, and every moment you choose to love her becomes a sunrise over everything she is. So let's walk into her city together, slowly, humbly, with hearts open, and discover the beauty she's been carrying all along. You know, there's a moment in life when everything slows down, like the world is catching its breath, just long enough for you to hear the truth your heart has been trying to whisper. And in that moment, something shifts. A light comes on, a presence enters, music, and suddenly the road ahead doesn't feel so lonely anymore. That's what happened when I realized I wasn't just speaking about someone, I was speaking towards someone, I was speaking towards someone. Someone who didn't just walk into my life. She changed the way I understood it. Her name feels like a quiet sunrise, the kind that doesn't demand attention, yet fills the sky anyway. Saying it out loud feels like opening a door you were always meant to walk through. It carries warmth, hope, and a softness that reminds you that connection isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a gentle nod between souls, and revealing her name isn't about presenting a person. It's about unveiling world, her laughter that turns ordinary streets into living poetry, her courage that turns doubt into something you can finally step away from, her kindness that builds a city where you feel safe enough to breathe again. Every time she speaks, it feels like she's leaving small lights along the paths you were too afraid to take. And every time she smiles, it feels like she's showing you that even the shadows have their own beauty. If you're willing to look with a softer heart, music, her name isn't just a word, it's a story, a beginning, a quiet promise that life can be better than it was yesterday. And today, revealing her name feels like revealing a truth I've carried long before I understood it. That love doesn't always arrive like thunder. It sometimes it comes wrapped in the gentle presence of someone who makes you rediscover who you are, one heartbeat at a time. Music. There's something almost indescribable about the moments that change us, the quiet ones, the ones that seem so ordinary at first that you barely notice the world tilting beneath your feet. It can happen when you least expect it, in the middle of an uneventful day, during a small silence, or in a space where nothing remarkable seems to be taking place. But then a presence enters your life, and slowly, without rushing, without demanding your attention, without pushing the world around to make room, she simply becomes impossible to ignore. And that's where everything truly begins. Because revealing her name isn't just about saying a few letters out loud. It's about acknowledging the way a person can become a turning point, a shift of gravity, a gentle recalibration of everything you thought you understood about connection and warmth, and the way someone's existence can make your day feel a little more clear, a little more grounded, a little more real, a little more grounded, a little more real. Music. Her name carries that kind of weight, that kind of lightness at the same time. It feels like the world softens for a moment when I think about what it represents. And yet it doesn't pull me away from reality. It pulls me deeper into it. Before I say her name, though, I need you to understand the world that surrounds it, the heart that shapes it, the quiet glow it carries. Because her name doesn't arrive with fanfare, it doesn't shout, it doesn't insist. It doesn't insist. It simply arrives like a soft breeze across a tired soul, like the kind of warmth you don't realize you've been waiting for until you finally feel it. When you encounter someone like her, there is no dramatic spark, no cinematic explosion of emotion. Instead, there is a steady recognition, a gentle familiarity, as if your heart is reminding you of something it knew long before you did. I realized it the moment I felt the shift inside myself, the moment her presence wasn't just pleasant but meaningful. There's a difference, between someone who passes through and someone who quietly plants themselves in the soil of your life. She became that without even trying. Music. She became the reason I looked at the world differently, the reason I paid attention to details I used to overlook, the reason I learned that love isn't something that arrives with a grand entrance, but something that reveals itself one breath, one heartbeat, one small truth at a time. Her name feels like a whisper the universe had been waiting to say. It feels like the kind of word that lifts you slightly, not enough to lose your footing, but enough to remind you that something beautiful is possible, even when you have no reason to expect it. And when I speak it, I don't feel like I'm identifying a single person. I feel like I'm revealing a story, a landscape, a city she built within herself long before I stepped into it. Because she is not defined by her name alone. She is defined by the way she moves through the world with quiet courage, the way her laughter turns simplicity into something meaningful, the way her voice carries a softness that doesn't weaken her strength, but enhances it in a way that makes you realize gentleness is its own kind of power, the way she can make a room feel calmer just by being in it, the way she can make someone feel seen without needing to say anything grand or impressive. Her presence is its own form of reassurance, and the more I learned about her, the more I realized that revealing her name was less about introducing her to the world and more about acknowledging the world she had quietly created within me. A place I didn't know existed, a place where my thoughts slowed down enough for me to breathe with more intention, a place where my emotions felt valid, not overwhelming, a place where I could finally understand that connection isn't measured in volume, but in depth. She made me see things I didn't know I needed to see, or so much as to know I needed to see. Not by teaching me, but by existing, by being herself without apology, without hesitation, without the walls so many people build to protect themselves from vulnerability. She didn't need to protect confidence. She didn't need to pretend she had everything figured out. What made her remarkable was her authenticity, her ability to show the world who she was without hardening her heart to survive it. And maybe that's why her name feels so important to reveal, because her name represents a soul who chose softness in a world that often rewards the opposite. Someone who carries storms but still chooses sunlight. Someone who has been hurt but still chooses to love. Someone who has been misunderstood but still chooses to speak gently. That kind of person deserves to be known, not because she needs the recognition, but because the world needs more reminders that people like her still exist. The truth is, her name represents something sacred, a reminder that love doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives as curiosity, as quiet admiration, as a small question that grows into something meaningful. And the more time I spent understanding who she was, the more I realized that love itself is less about the fireworks and more about the steady warmth of a presence you can't imagine your days without. Her name became the reason I paid attention to small details, the way she smiles when she's trying not to laugh, the way her voice softens when she talks about something she cares about, the way her voice softens when she talks about something she cares about, the way her eyes look when she's thinking deeply, but doesn't want to say anything yet. These little moments became markers, signposts, pieces of her that led me through the city she had built. Inside her heart, music. And I walked those streets slowly, respectfully, knowing that every part of her had been shaped by stories I didn't yet understand, by memories I hadn't yet heard, by dreams she hadn't fully shared. Revealing her name isn't just about telling you who she is, it's about honoring the journey she took to become the person she is today. It's about acknowledging the strength it takes to remain kind in a world that sometimes feels heavy with uncertainty. It's about recognizing that love is not something we demand. It's something we are allowed to witness when we meet someone whose presence feels like clarity, music. As I say her name, I do so with a quiet reverence because it carries everything she has been, everything she is, everything she hopes to be. Her name feels like the soft echo of a truth I've been learning slowly, gently, that the heart knows what it needs long before the mind catches up, and mine knew her name long before I understood why. I say her name with gratitude. I say her name with tenderness. I say her name because it reminds me that the world can still surprise you with beauty at the exact moment you stopped expecting it. I say her name because it taught me that the right person doesn't rush your heart. They reveal it one quiet moment at a time. I say her name because it feels like the beginning of something I don't want to run from. I say her name because it feels like the beginning of something I don't want to run from. I say her name because it carries a love that doesn't need to be loud to be real. I say her name, me, because it feels like home in a way I never understood before. And when her name moves through your thoughts, I want you to feel what I feel, the warmth, the calm, the certainty that someone like her doesn't just exist. She transforms the spaces she touches. Music. She reveals parts of you that you didn't think were worth revisiting. She reminds you that gentleness is not weakness. She helps you see that vulnerability is a strength, that affection is a language, that love is not a performance but a presence. Her name reveals her heart reveals her city, and her city reveals everything beautiful you didn't know you were missing. There are moments in life when the heart starts speaking before the mind understands what's happening, moments that feel quiet on the outside but shift something enormous on the inside. Moments when a single presence, a single voice, a single glance feels like it rewrites something you've been carrying for years. That's the strange, gentle way connection works. It doesn't need permission, it doesn't need to announce itself. It simply arrives, and everything around it begins to unfold in directions you never expected. What I've discovered, what I continue to discover, is that loving someone isn't simply a feeling, a music. It's an awakening, a series of realizations that arrive slowly, tenderly, sometimes even shyly. And when you begin to love someone with honesty in your heart, the world doesn't get louder. It gets quieter. It becomes clearer. You begin to see not just the person standing before you, but the person within you being transformed by their presence. And that transformation isn't loud or dramatic. It's subtle, like the shift in light right before sunrise, where you don't notice the change until everything around you is softly illuminated. There's something miraculous about the moment you realize love is not something you fall into. It's something you rise into, because loving someone doesn't reduce you. It expands you. It stretches the walls of your spirit, gives you room to breathe in ways you didn't know you were suffocating. It invites you into a deeper, braver part of yourself, a part that was waiting silently for someone who made you feel safe enough to open it. And this is what she did. Without force, without effort, without any intent to change the landscape of my world, she simply became the reason I looked at myself differently. She became the reason I softened. She became the reason I listened more, felt more, understood more. And none of this happened because she pushed. It happened because she existed with a kind of authenticity that made me want to be honest with myself. You see, love is not the fireworks people talk about. It's not the grand gestures, the dramatic words, the sudden rush that knocks you over. Those things fade quickly. Real love is the quiet presence that stays. It's the soft glance across a room that says everything without needing to say anything. It's the comfort of knowing you don't need to be perfect to be valued. It's the simplicity of finding yourself drawn towards someone even when nothing outwardly remarkable is happening. She made me understand that love isn't passion. She made me understand that love isn't passion alone, it's peace. It's the warmth that settles in your chest when you think of someone who feels like a safe place in a world full of noise. It's the calm that washes over you when you imagine a future that isn't built on fantasy, but on shared presence, shared understanding, shared truth. It's the gentle recognition that someone's existence makes life feel less heavy, less complicated, less lonely. And I realized that loving her wasn't about trying to win her heart. It was about allowing my own heart to speak freely for the first time in a long time. Music, it was about letting myself feel without shutting the emotion down. It was about letting myself feel without trying to protect myself from the possibility of loss. Love, real love, asks you to be brave in the quietest way possible. It asks you to open doors inside yourself that you've kept locked because the world taught you to be careful. It asks you to trust in something fragile, knowing its fragility is what gives it meaning. What surprised me most is use. How love changes your perception of time. When she's near, everything feels slower in the best way. Conversations linger, silences feel full, moments stretch softly, like the world is allowing you to stay in that feeling a little longer than usual. And when she's away, time doesn't rush or drag. It simply waits. It waits because part of you is anchored to her presence, and everything else because part of you is anchored to her presence, and everything else becomes background noise until you return to that connection again. Her voice has a way of settling things inside me, not because of what she says, but because of how she says it. There's sincerity in her tone that can't be replicated, a warmth that isn't rehearsed, a softness that doesn't pretend, and even in moments when her words are simple, they carry a depth that stays with me long after the conversation ends. I find myself replaying the sound of her laughter, the way her breath catches when something makes her smile, the quiet pauses she takes when she's thinking carefully. Every detail becomes a piece of the world she builds within me. Loving someone isn't just about admiring the way they look, but the way they live, and she lives with a kind of quiet bravery that inspires me. She carries her struggles without letting them harden her. She moves through life with grace, even when she's hurting. She chooses kindness, even when the world hasn't always been kind to her. She has learned how to rebuild herself in silence, how to heal without demanding applause, how to grow even when no one is watching. And that is the kind of woman who changes you, not because she tries to, but because she shows you what strength looks like when it's wrapped in tenderness. Music, she shows you that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a testament to the courage it takes to remain open in a world that often rids us the opposite. She shows you that being gentle doesn't mean being fragile, it means being deeply courageously alive. I realized that loving her wasn't about needing her to complete anything inside me. It was about recognizing that her presence amplifies the parts of me I value most. My calm, my patience, my sincerity, my capacity to care. She doesn't replace anything. She reveals the goodness I forget I carry. She reveals the goodness I forget I carry. She reveals the hope I thought I had lost. She reveals the softness I tried to bury to protect myself. She reveals the parts of me I didn't know were waiting to be awakened. Her name, every time it crosses my mind, feels like an invitation to be present, to be thoughtful, to be real, to be attentive to the quiet details that make connection meaningful. Her name has become a rhythm inside me, not loud, not demanding, but steady, like a heartbeat you didn't know you were listening to until it became impossible to ignore. And what truly moves me is the way she sees the world, not as a place to conquer, not as a competition to win, but as a collection of moments that matter because of the people you share them with. She finds beauty in things most people overlook. She listens to emotions that others rush past. She pays attention to the subtleties, the way the light hits at a certain hour, the sound of someone's voice when they're nervous, the softness in a person's expression when they let their guard down. UMass turns into music. She notices these things not because she's trying, but because her heart is naturally tuned to the world's quieter music. When someone carries that kind of sensitivity, loving them becomes more than an emotion. It becomes an honor. Music. You begin to understand that love is not just about receiving affection. It's about being entrusted with someone's truth, being allowed into the deeper rooms of their soul, being given the privilege of knowing their hopes, their fears, their fragile dreams. And when she lets me see those parts of her, something inside me shifts with gratitude. Because love isn't about possession, it's about presence. It's about presence. It's not about claiming someone, it's about cherishing them. It's not about claiming someone, it's about cherishing them. It's not about holding tightly, it's about holding gently. And she deserves to be held gently, not because she is breakable, but because she holds the world with that same level of care. I've learned that loving her means listening not only to her words, but to her silences. Music. To the thoughts she struggles to express, to the moments when she looks away, searching for the courage to say something vulnerable, to the shifts in her breathing when she's overwhelmed, to the softness in her voice when she feels safe. These are the things love teaches you to hear. These are the details that make connection feel sacred. These are the details that make connection feel sacred. And every time I think about her, every time I say her name, inside my mind, I feel a warmth that isn't dramatic or overwhelming. It's grounding. It reminds me that love doesn't always choose the loudest person in the room. It's grounding. It reminds me that love doesn't always choose the loudest person in the room. Sure. Sometimes it chooses the one who makes you feel calm in a world that spins too fast. Sometimes it chooses the one whose presence feels like a familiar melody, one you want to play over and over because it brings you back to yourself. She has become the quiet rhythm in my days, the gentle steadiness in my thoughts, the soft place my heart returns to without hesitation. And the more I learn about her, the more I realize that love isn't something you build quickly. Music, it's something you build with patience, with sincerity, with small acts of care that accumulate over time. It's something you build by showing up, not perfectly, not dramatically, but consistently. The connection I feel with her isn't something I rush. It's something I respect. It's something I nurture slowly, like tending to a flame that doesn't need to be large to be meaningful. It just needs to be steady. And that steadiness has become a part of me now, a part shaped by the way she speaks, the way she moves, the way she feels like a soft echo of everything I've been longing for, without knowing how to name it. Love, I've learned, is not about filling a void. It's about recognizing a resonance, something in her soul that hums at the same frequency as something in mine.